I keep seeing this pushback when I talk about Fangio's scheme. I will say this very clearly. I am never in favor of choosing scheme over player, ever. To me, this is a player league. Blue chip players are more important than anything else, and it's incumbent upon coaches to maximize players within their scheme. Now, you can say there are certain things in your scheme that a player doesn't do well, and so we're going to do this to compensate for it. But if a player is an elite player, then you can't, like, trading a guy because he's not the scheme fit, then I would say then the problem is your scheme.
Well,
and
I
not
also
the player.
think there's a communication issue here, right? And it's interesting. I thought what Todd Davis was telling us in Vegas was really interesting about, framing it as like sometimes you're going to have easy downs, sometimes you're going to have hard downs. Like if you're Haason Reddick and the messaging is like, yeah, I'm going to ask you to drop like 4 times a game.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a big deal. Like it's going to be like within the context of what we're doing as a group. It's going to make sense and you're going to understand the why of it all. I think that's fine. Like he doesn't have to rush the passer every single play. But if it's like, oh, Matt Patricia's coming in and he's asking you to drop and like you don't get to go get the sacks you want before getting paid, right? Like of course he's going to feel some kind of way about that. Like managing those relationships is part of the job, and like Vic Fangio has done that for a long time. I don't know that was done well with Haason Reddick over the last year.
That's a great point. And speaking of those interviews last week, which you can find on our YouTube channel, there are 30 interviews with more to come from, or 30 videos, both on demand and our live shows with more to come. We had Adam Hogue from CHGO on, and we were talking about Fangio's scheme, and he said he needs really good edge rushers, right, for that scheme. That's why it was so good in Chicago. They traded for Khalil Mack, and it changed that defense, right? And that was a trade where they gave up 2 first-round picks to get Khalil Mack. Now Khalil Mack was like 25 at the time, but you were talking about your best edge rusher. The way you framed it just now is perfect. The problem isn't Haason Reddick dropping. He drops sometimes with Gannon, right? The problem is not maximizing his ability as a pass rusher. So if it's...
I also think, there's a big difference between he's dropping and you're rushing 3 defensive tackles instead, as opposed to he's dropping and like the nickel is coming instead, and you're confusing the offense, right? Like,
so if you're saying like, well, let's trade Haason Reddick and let's sign Andrew Van Ginkel because he can drop in Fangio's defense, I'm saying that's ridiculous. Like, trade Haason Reddick. The only reason
and also in theory, that is what Nolan Smith should be able to do. If Nolan Smith is 70% of Haason Reddick as a pass rusher, but is happily going to play in space, then that's fine.
Yeah, agreed. The only justifiable reason for me to trade Haason Reddick is that he wants $25 to $30 million a year, and we can't fit that within our cap structure, and we can get good compensation now.
Yeah, I think the justifiable reason is it's we have this value on the player, and we're getting more value. Than we have.
That's the only.
That's fine.
I don't want to hear he's a one-trick pony. I don't want to hear he can't drop in Fangio's scheme. Like, no, nothing about the player that he is. To me,
this deal is too good to pass up. I think that's totally reasonable.
It's that you have to pay Haason Reddick next year to be here. 10 to 12 million more than what he makes now, and if you're able to get premium picks and you have a good backup plan, if you think Bryce Huff can be 75% of the player, and you can bring in Bryce Huff, and then you can use the 2nd and 3rd round pick to get your, linebacker or safety or whatever. Okay, I will listen then, but don't come to me and say, yeah, he's declining, or he's only, he's a speed rusher. That's all. No, he's an elite player from my perspective.
We all silly like the mayor.